everyone, a huge warm welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Ilona Kay, and today we are knitting. I'm sharing some beginner knitting tips and how to start knitting and a few patterns that I know. So stay tuned for the action. Alright, so to start off with, you're definitely going to need some wool. So the wool I have here is Charity. The label's covering it a little bit there. And this is double knit. And then you are also going to need some knitting needles. I have these over here. These are a size 4.5. So there we go, if you can see there. Gonna hold that there. Those are a 4.5 millimeter, and then these are a 4 millimeter, as you can see over there. These are actually my first knitting needles. These are kitty knitting needles, and you will see that they are much smaller than normal knitting needles. So you are going to want the longer pair. These are little kitty knitting needles if you do find them in the store. So I got my knitting needles and I got my wool. In order to know which wool to use and which knitting needles, they do have a guide at the back over here. As you can see there, there's the guide. Just let it focus. And you'll be able to see there that you need a size 3.75 to 4.5 mil for double knitting. Here we go. And you will also see the size for a crochet hook. So that's always nice to know. If you do go to the shop, you can then see which size you need and grab the wool, grab your knitting needles, and let's get started. All right, so I'm going to show you a basic cast on. So what's important for beginning knitters is to always grab from the middle. It's just easier because then your ball doesn't flop around everywhere. So it's easiest to go through the middle, find the middle, and use that straight from the middle. Just trying to get this a little bit loose here. Right, so here is my end. And I'm just going to move this wool to the side over there. So you're going to take this, and what you're going to do is you're going to take it and make a crossover like that so that you have a little loop. And then you will always have a tail. So depending on your project will depend on the tail. I'm just doing a short intro, so I'm going to have a little tail, but you normally would have quite a longish tail. So that you can finish off your work, or so that you can sew two pieces together. You're going to cross it there. You're going to take the tail piece, bring that through and tighten to make a little loop like that. So let me just show you that again. You're going to cross over, put the tail in the middle there, hold that middle, and then tighten to make a loop. All right, so another thing that you want to look at is that the tail is towards the back, or it is on the right side. So I'm going to take my needle, put it through, and as you'll see, the tail is on the right side. Then I'm going to hold this knot. Then I'm going to take the tail piece, pull it so that it goes tight onto my knitting needle. Then to make the next stitches, what I do is I take my two fingers and I do that with it. So you will take your two fingers like that, cross them over, stick the needle through and tighten. So we're just going to do that again. Hold the wool like this, cross it over and tighten. It is basically the same as the loop that we did. So as you can see, there's the loop that we did. We put the needle through and we tighten. So you would then, as you can see, if I'm doing it slow motion, make that loop, put the needle through and tighten. I like to do it like this and in, just to make it quicker. So there in, but you're also welcome to make that loop, put it in, and tighten. So I'm just going to make a few stitches here. Let's do 10. And there we go. There is your basic casting on. And then to do the first row, to make these proper stitches, what we are going to do, which is called a basic knit, you're going to take your needle, stick it underneath that stitch in there. As you can see, just showing different angles. So you're going to stick it underneath, take your wool, put it over that needle with the stitch, and then you are going to slip this first stitch off. So you're going to take your needle underneath, into there, take your wool, pull it over, and slip that stitch off. Take the wool under, over, and slip the stitch off. The first row is a little bit difficult just because it's a bit tighter. Underneath, slip that over and out. Underneath, over, and through. And there we go. So there is your first row of knitting. There you can see it on this side. There is the first row, and that is the basic starting of knitting. What I'm going to show you now is how to do a basic garter stitch. So I've made a little swatch over here. This is the basic garter stitch and how it looks. So I'm going to show you how to make this little square. So what I'm going to do is the knitting that I did, I'm just going to do all the way until I have 10 rows. So to count a row, you will look at, I call these little bobbles. So you will look at, this would be 1 row, there would be 2 rows. As you can see, the little bobbles. And if it's easier, you can always pull it. You can see there, wherever it makes creases, that is a row. So if I put it like this, I can see, there we go, those that stick out, that's 1 row. There is row 2, row 3, row 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 is the last row. For now, I am not counting the first row. So that's how you will count your rows. I find it easier if I just squeeze it like this. I can see these bobbles that stick up, those are my rows, as you can see there. So we're just going to knit this. So each side with the garter stitch is the same. So you will do the same stitch. So you will go underneath, over, slip off, underneath, over, slip off. So this will be the first one I'm doing. And then I will turn my work over. And then as you can see, this wool on the side here is always facing out, and that's why the tail must always be on the one side. And it'll always be at the back of your work. So you always see that it's going towards the back of your needle. So this is the other side, and again, I'm just doing the same. So I'm going to quickly knit this for the 10 rows, and then I'll be back with you guys. All right, so now that we have done all 10 rows, I'm going to show you how to do a casting off. So with the casting off of this piece, you are going to do the same and knit the first stitch. You are then going to go and knit the second stitch. You are then going to have 2 stitches on this needle, and you're going to leave for now the rest on the other needle. You're then going to take this bottom one and pull it over and slip it off. So I'm going to show you that again. You're going to take the next stitch, knit, and you're going to take the bottom stitch, because you are slipping this off and casting that off. But always make sure you take the bottom one and you slip that over the first one. If you're going to slip the first one off, then you will be dropping that stitch. So with every one, you're going to take the bottom one and slip it off. Knit, take the bottom one, pull it over there and slip off. Sorry about that. Knit 2, take the bottom one, slip off. So always make sure that you've got 2 on the other needle. You cannot have more than that when casting off. And then now we've got 2, so we're going to knit this last one, take that off, remove this needle, put that needle down. I'm then going to do the same, take the bottom, slip that off, pull this out a little bit, take my needle out. I'm then going to either use my hands or scissors, but because it's wool, I don't mind using my hands. Do just be careful because you could slip this off. So for beginners, I would cut it. But you can take this and just break the wool there, and then you're just going to pull that through and tighten that. And there we go. There is a completed miniature knitted square, and then these 2 ends over here, you can either work them back in, or you can just cut them off. So there's a completed, this is how you will do a garter stitch. So there's my 2 little miniature squares. You can see there how a garter stitch is done. Alright, so to see in full length, here is an example of a garter stitch. So here's a little square that I knitted, and there you can see how it will look in its full form. It's a little bit difficult to see it with my little square. So that is the full garter stitch. You can see there. That's how it will look. Now for the next one, I'm going to show you how to do a stocking or stockinette stitch. A stocking or stockinette stitch looks like this. So you can see the pattern is quite different. It's got sort of triangles that go like arrows all the way up. So this one, compared to the garter stitch does not have a right and a wrong side, because it looks like this on this side and it looks the same on the other side, as you can see. With the stockinette stitch though, it does indeed have a right side and a wrong side. So this would be the right side and this would be the wrong side. You can see that there's clearly a difference. It basically looks a bit like garter stitch, just a little bit tighter. So remember, with the stockinette stitch, there's a wrong side and a right side. With the garter stitch, there is no wrong and right side. So the garter stitch is sometimes nice to do for blankets because there's no right or wrong side. But I personally think that this one is a lot prettier, and I like to do blankets and jerseys in the stockinette stitch. So let me show you how to do that. So we're going to start on by casting on my stitches. For this tutorial, I will be using little samples, as you've seen the little squares, just because it's easier to demonstrate. So I'm going to put on 10 stitches onto my needles. So I already have 1, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and number 10. Now I can see there's all my stitches, and I can even go and count them if I need to. I'm then going to knit the entire first row. So I'm going to go underneath as we do with the knit and take my wool, pull it over and slip that off. So this first piece is the exact same from my garter stitch and my plain knit. So there is my first row and the basic done. Now to explain and show how the purl is. So one thing that's important is with knitting, we go underneath here and the wool is on this side, exposed to the outside. With the garter stitch, the wool would be in the middle, and we are going to go through the top in that angle. So this is a knit and that is a purl. And the purl will give us this pattern over here. So what you're going to do is take that in over there like that, hold your needles, take this wool, pull it over, and then slip that off. I'm going to do that again slowly. We're going to do it from the top here. And you can see that my wool is now in the middle. It's in a completely different position, whereas with the knit, it is on the outside. With the purl, it is in the middle on the left side. So we're going to go from the top here. We are going to pull that over there. Make sure that's slipped in like that and pull it off. In the top, pull that over and slip that off. In the top, pull that over, make sure that you get it in that angle and slip it off. In there, over, that is the angle you're looking at. Make sure you get that stitch, slip off. In over there, over, and slip it off. So that is the difference between the knit and purl. And there we go. So you will see there is a definite difference. You can see there it's already starting with the little, as I call, triangles. You can see there. Now to remember how to do this is with the garter stitch. With this one, you are just going to knit every single row. With this one, you are going to knit one side and purl the other side. So how I like to remember it is when we purl, we go from the top and it will give me this design. When we knit and go in from the bottom, it gives me the back end, this side, the garter stitch. So I like to remember it as reverse, if that makes sense. So we can see that this is the stockinette stitch side. So with this side, in order to continue that stockinette stitch, I know to do the opposite of this, and I'm going to knit this row. I hope this makes sense. It's the way that I like to remember it. So this is a stockinette stitch side. So I'm going to knit this row. And then I'm going to turn my work over to the other side. And here I will see that I'm on this side. In order to create this pattern, I do knitting. So what I will do is the opposite on this side. So I will then purl this side. So remember, the one side you're always doing purl and the other side you're always doing knit to create this pattern over here. So when it comes to this side, I am going to purl. And there we go. We can see that this pattern is continuing on both sides. So again, when I come to this side, I know that I need to, yeah, you said it, I need to knit it. So always remember that. With the stockinette stitch, you are going to do the one side knit and the other side purl. So I'm going to quickly do my rows here, and then I will be back with you guys. Alright, so I'm busy on my last row over here. One thing about the stockinette stitch that I prefer is to always cast off and end off in the knit. I just find it so much easier, as I find with the angle that you're coming in with the purl, it can often be difficult to cast off in purl. So I always prefer to turn my work over and ensure that I'm casting off in the knit. Alright, so here I am, and I'm now ready to cast off my work. So I'm going to take the needle under and do the same as I did in the previous cast off. I'm going to knit 2 of them, take the bottom one and slip that off. Knit another one, take the bottom and slip that off. This naughty tail keeps wanting to get in the middle of the work. Take this last one, slip that over, pull this through a little bit, and then you're going to either break the wool or you're going to cut it and then pull that right through. And then just pull it tight just so it makes a knot. And there we go. So you can see there are my 2 stockinette stitches, and I've done my 2 garter stitches. So one thing to note with the stockinette stitch is, as you can see, if I lay it flat, it indeed curls. You can see it curls here on the edges and it curls round over there. So one thing to note is when doing a blanket, this is why I prefer doing this one for a blanket, because it lays flat. With the stockinette stitch, it does tend to curl, so do just be mindful of that when making something. What you would need to do is a ribbing or a border around the knitting. But I will do that in my part 2 of my tutorial videos, so stay tuned for when that video comes out. So there are the basic knittings. Here is the knit, and here is the knit purl stockinette stitch. So there you have it. So I'm going to show you how the stockinette or stocking stitch looks in full length. There you can see how that looks. This was a project I did a few years ago where I did a pattern. There is the ribbing I spoke about for my part 2 video. So there you can see how that'll look. And as I've mentioned, I think that this personally is the prettier look. I do prefer it. I just think it looks a lot prettier than the garter stitch does. So that's that in full length. I would like to thank you all so much for today's video and for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing to my channel and tapping that notification bell. So today we learned how to do a basic cast on, cast off, knit and purl, as well as a garter stitch and a stockinette stitch. So I hope all of you knitting lovers or aspiring knitters are inspired by this video and you go on grabbing those needles and get knitting. Please comment down below if you found this video inspirational, if it helped you, and if you have any questions regarding knitting. I'm not a knitting expert, but I'm very willing to go Google for you and go search some answers for you. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all next time. Bye.